Hello, Happy Hour. This is Kim, one of the hosts of the Project Management Happy Hour podcast. Now, from time to time, we record podcasts where it might be useful to see some of our content. So we thought, why not just post a video? And that's what we're trying to do here. Now, here's the catch, though. We don't know who's actually going to be watching our videos rather than listening and subscribing to our podcasts. So we're just going to post them unedited, which means these are raw, uncut, unedited videos of our podcast recording, including bloopers, the occasional F-bomb maybe, audio issues, people ringing the doorbell, phones ringing, all that awful stuff that we usually cut out. So hopefully you still find them useful and enjoy them. So here you go, episode number 46, data, process, and maturity. Is it all BS or is there something to that? Enjoy.
Today's show, process, data, and maturity. Is it all BS or does it really matter? Hi, I'm Kim Messenger, project manager, consultant, and trainer. And with me today, as always, is the amazing Kate Anderson. Hey, Kate.
Hey, Kim. Good morning.
Where are you in the world today?
I'm in San Jose. San Jose.
So, Jose.
There's this great, it's not a documentary. It's not a documentary at all. It's a telenovela. There's this great telenovela on Netflix called La Casa de las Flores. And somebody's ex-husband it's a trans person. So they were husband when they were married and now they're a woman. But every time the wife says the trans person's name, she says, Jose Maria. And then the name after she transitions is Maria Jose. So it's just my favorite thing. It's just Maria Jose. So good. I highly recommend it.
So when someone says where you work, you say, I work in
Jose Maria. So good. Oh, it's trashy and great. It's pretty great.
All right. Now I'm here in Phoenix, although it looks like I might have to go to Germany next month.
Oh, that's exciting.
No, I'm just tired. I'm just, after enough transatlantic flights, it's just not as sexy anymore. It's just, oh God, I'm gonna be jet lagged for weeks, and
yeah,
hey, it's just not as exciting as it once was,
Yeah, I get it. I only had like a year of transatlantic flights, and not even a year. I think I had just a couple months, and I was like, this is terrible. This is so hard. Yeah. I also had the most passive aggressive, actually, I guess it was just aggressive flight on the way back, trying to prevent my jet lag because I wanted to stay awake on the flight on the way back so that I'd be tired at the end of the day, and then I would sleep. So I had my window open just a little bit to keep the light coming in.
In the airplane?
In the airplane, yep. And the woman behind me kept reaching forward and closing my window. I know. And she was German. I'm pretty sure she was German. And she just was saying, I want to sleep. And I said, close your window. She says, I can't sleep. I said, use an eye thing. I guess it wasn't passive aggressive. We were having a fight. We were fighting. It was a very polite fight, but it was a fight. But I couldn't believe she kept opening my window. I was like, no, I don't want to sleep. So you're going to have to deal with it. I'm not sorry.
Yeah, they have the blindfolds, man.
I know, right? But yeah, that was the most surreal time I've ever had on a plane. Somebody actually closing my window. It's like, in this, what decorum? What is happening?
How dare you, madam? How dare you?
Madam, how dare? Use an eye cover. It's very silly.
All right. So just a reminder about what we're about. Our format is casual but honest talk about tough subjects in project management. We don't pretend to have all the answers, but hopefully we have some useful lessons learned that we can share. What's more, this is not just a podcast, but it's also an online class.
Yeah. Join the membership at pmhappyhour.com. You can take a quiz and get PDUs for this podcast and all the other podcasts that we've ever done, and we'll upload them to PMI for you. Plus, all of our other podcasts are up there, and we've got some cool bonus content for our members, like...
Well,
Oh, The power of editing. I'm so excited.
I know. Like, I'm sorry, what I lost you. Where did you leave off?
Hey, quick announcement too. We're offering private one-on-one Q&A.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we're offering
Yes,
cool bonus content like
one-on-one Q&A sessions with Kim and maybe later on Kate. But right now I'm taking
just say Kim.
I'll just say Kim.
Make no promises for me.
No, I will not make any promises. We are trying out.
All right, we get through this, and the rest of the podcast will be easy.
Yes. We are offering private one-on-one Q&A sessions with Kim. Check out the resource section, resource page. Members can find a link to schedule a session. And those can be mentoring sessions. It can be Q&A. They can be, holy crap, help me out. I've got a project that's on fire. What do I do? We'll help you there.
Panic button questions.
It is a panic button.
Also, we have a lot of members working to get their PMP. We want to help you guys out. So we've got a sign-up form for who's interested in PMP classes. What we may do a study group, or maybe it's self-paced training or a real-time virtual class, depending on the interest. So if you need some help with getting ready for the PMP, sign up at pmhappyhour.com/PMP.
Yeah, and we're not sure what these sessions are going to look like yet. It's going to really depend on you guys and what your interest is. So these may be just an online study group. They may be self-paced study sessions. We may even have a full-on virtual PMP boot camp if there's enough interest. So come and let us know if you're interested, and we'll see what we can do to help you out. Hey, Kate.
Yes.
Hey, have you ever been in a PMO meeting or with a bunch of PMs and someone starts going on about process? We have to fix the process. That will make our world complete.
Of course I have. And actually, what's very funny is that that's something I'm working on this week. Somebody is really stuck in fixing the process, just the process. There's a great leader I'm working with who's trying to help us think broader than just this process. But literally this week, it's just fix it. Fix it. We lost the person. We have to replace the roles. Let's just make sure the same work gets done in the same way. We'll just fix the process.
Or how about this one? If we had this tool or that tool or this system integration, our world would be complete. All of our projects would be perfect. Nothing would go wrong.
I think if we had this tool is a triggering sentence for me at work. And I know that people overuse the word triggered, but when I hear that phrase, my blood pressure increases and I go into attack mode. I want to say things such as, why, how could you possibly know that?
You pull out your copy of Crucial Conversations and you just start reading.
No, I start just furiously ripping it apart and throwing the pages in their face because I'm so mad, because tools never solve problems. Tools never solve problems. If you had a tool that worked for you great in an organization, it's because that organization did a lot of fantastic work to make that tool work for you. Tools never solve problems. Never. They don't exist in a vacuum. They exist in a company. The company has structures and cultures and sometimes processes. And if you don't address those things, tools don't matter. So look, it's happening. It's happening now. You're experiencing every time people bring up tools.
You kind of wrecked my next prompt, which was, did you ever wonder if that was all just a bunch of BS?
Did you ever wonder? There was a time when I wondered. Now I know.
No, I know.
I know it. I've lived it.
So what I do a lot of consulting on processes and tools. And my team and I have a good sense, and I'm sure you do as well, Kate, that some places, process and systems can actually really help when they're done well and done right. And there's clearly a lot of places where it's really not going to help. But just saying, yeah, I'm pretty sure in this instance it's going to help. You know, that's kind of, we decided we wanted to have some data to back that up. We wanted to be able to quantify those kinds of statements.
Ooh, yeah. I want to hear about this. Tell me about your data.
Yeah. So what we did last year at PMO Symposium, we said, this is a great opportunity for us to talk to a bunch of PMO leaders. So we put together a survey and we grabbed people in the hallway and drug them over to talk with us. And we ended up talking with over 60 PMO and PPM leaders. and got their input on our survey. And the whole goal of the survey was to try to get quantifiable data on what processes and what data actually really help, or actually do they?
That's really cool. Did they come back and say all tools are crap and validate me? Because that's really all I want to hear.
No, it didn't say all tools and data are crap. It also didn't say that any tools and data will solve all of your problems.
That makes
But
sense.
the data that we came back it did have some kind of interesting things, although honestly, in some areas, it maybe raised more questions than it really answered. But
Yes, that's
there
what
are,
happened. That's the
yes.
natural way that things go. You try to solve problem and more questions appear. That's validated. I see it. I'm validated. Continue.
So they're really cool questions I'd like to investigate further. But there are some areas where the data actually made pretty clear correlations.
Interesting.
Yes. And so what I'd like to do on this podcast is walk through some of those results and findings and tell you a little bit about the survey. And I've got some great slides, which if you're listening, I will try to describe. But we'll also post video of the podcast on our YouTube channel and link to it from our website. And I'll also post a PDF of the slides there too, if you're nerding out over this and want to see what I'm talking about. Cool.
Transition music.
Transition to slideshow.
We'll be right back.
All right. So I'm looking at my slides. Okay. So before we get started, I want to point out something about this data. Is our whole analysis here is based on correlation. Correlation is not causation. Just because we see somebody who has successful projects and maybe has a certain kind of tool, that doesn't mean that the tool created the project success. They just kind of correlate. We can draw some conclusions from that. Maybe it'll give us some food for thought, but we can't at this stage drive a direct correlation.
Mm-hmm.
Did I
Makes
waffle
sense.
on that? Yeah. All right. So first, let's talk about who actually responded to this. And what was pretty cool is that from a responder perspective, 39% of these were project or PMO managers, 26% of them were managers or senior managers, 21% were director level, 10% were executives. So most of these, almost all of them were in leadership positions. So we're not talking about people who are executing projects or, we're talking about the leaders in the organization who are able to actually speak to some of this data and what's working for them and what's not working for them.
Yeah, and you got a big chunk of people who are in large organizations, 15,000 people or more.
We did. We had almost a third of the respondents were in huge organizations of 15,000 people or more. We had, what do we have here? 12% were in organizations 5,000 to 15,000, and then 14% from 2,000 to 5,000. So what, about 2/3 of them are in organizations of over 2,000 people. So good turnout. Now, before we got into the cool questions about process and data, we asked the question is, how is project management perceived in your organization? And we could almost do a whole podcast just on this.
We could.
I know, maybe we should, but I got to share it because it's so cool. So 15% of respondents, 15% said that in their organization, project management is perceived as a roadblock that makes everything more complicated. 15%.
Oh, it's so bad.
And then 38% of respondents thought that project management was an administrative function. They're just coordinators. They're the people who write the meeting minutes.
So now we're at over half of the respondents think that project management is either a roadblock or just administrative function. Oh, God.
They basically don't see a lot of value in project management.
Take a knife and stab it in my heart. Oh, my goodness.
Better than half. That's pretty shocking.
Yeah. But it's also not, I mean, we know we've talked about box checker PMs, so I'm devastated if they represent more than half of us. Oh, oof.
Yeah, that's just the impression, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good news is that about 28% of respondents felt their organization saw project management as a business enabler. It helps the business, is proactive and drives it. And 19% which actually is more than I expected in this category. 19% of organizations felt that project management was an essential function and a core competency of what they do.
Well, that's 19% is higher than 15%, which is good. So it's the smallest group thinks that project management is crap. The second smallest group thinks it's an essential function and core competency. So
yeah, but the biggest slice is that project management is viewed as just an administrative function.
Oh man, that is rough. Roof stoof.
That's sad. So let's talk about measuring success. And so the way we put together the survey was we had a few demographic questions just to find out who we're talking to. And then we had some questions about project success. And we didn't want to come out and say, are all your projects successful? Because that's just, I don't think we're going to get honest results there either. So what we want to do is ask some more quantitative questions. So we broke down that question into a couple of categories. We said, how well does your organization deliver on scope? How well do they deliver on timelines? How well do they deliver value or the expected value or revenue, and so on, for quality, customer satisfaction, making efficient use of resources, and so on. So we could break it down and also find out what dimensions of success are impacted by the different topics we covered. And in addition to that, we ask questions about how they get data, how do they use data, and what tools that they have and how they use their tools and processes. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So, first question, how does the maturity of project management correlate with project success? What do you think?
Oh, okay. For our listeners that would be lazy like me and would never open this PowerPoint, I just want to set the stage here.
Yes.
In front of me is a number. It's an X and Y axis, and Y, which goes up, is 0 to 10. And across the bottom, we have average scope, average time, average cost, average quality, resource, customer satisfaction, score, ability to close fires. And they are all blank at this point. So I sit with bated breath for Kim to click the next button to tell me the answers to these things. So I'm very excited. All right. So I'm sorry, Kim. Now that we've set the stage, please ask your question again.
How does the maturity of project management correlate with project success in each of these categories? And let me step back and say a little bit about what maturity means. So the question was termed, is the maturity of your organization ad hoc, firefighting most of the time? You're just trying to figure it out. Or level 2, are you repeatable for the most part? Can you kind of do projects pretty repeatable? You have some method. Are you defined well with standard processes? So are you really kind of a well-oiled machine? Are you measured and capable of data-driven decisions? Do you really have your ducks in a row and you're a well-oiled machine, you've got clear data? Or are you completely optimized, proactive, deriving value, kind of that top level of process maturity and perfection?
Oof. If somebody has achieved, if somebody's in that last category, our job is done. We never need to talk about project management again.
I think it's a fiction, but anyway. So what do you think?
How does the maturity of project management correlate with project success? I would think that the more mature you are, the better you are at achieving success. That's how I think it would correlate.
Right. And the results are?
Oh my goodness. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's not as dramatic a correlation as we would see. So across our different categories, we can see kind of a correlation between the more mature you are, typically the more successful you are, but it's not a straight line. In a lot of categories, we see that if you get up to a defined or measured state, you're doing pretty well and not dramatically better than those that are in that super untouchable, optimized state of maturity.
I think, and so for our listeners who again are lazy, myself included, who won't click to open this, whenever you see, it's so funny because the chart that I see that looks like this is actually win rates for characters in bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, master, grandmaster, and top 500. for heroes. Like they'll pick, they'll pick the healer category and talk about pick rates and then win rates across those tiers. If you've seen those graphs, which is a very small subset of our users, it looks just like that. And if you haven't, it's a bar chart across each of those categories, and then it goes up over time, right? So it kind of correlates. But the one that I am most interested in is an average of fires. Talking about firefighting, there's a spike. Yeah, there's a spike in the firefighting group most of the time, and then it drops down for people who are repeatable, or they've got good processes, or they're measured and capable of driving success, and then it spikes back up to the same level for those ones who believe they've achieved perfection, which to me, again, since this is about validating me, it just reminds me of my episode where I talked about how escalation is like eating your vegetables. And here we see that the best optimized, proactive, and driving value groups fight as many fires as people who just feel like they exist in firefighting mode. That's funny.
And that's exactly the correlation that we found. We see what you would kind of expect to see is that, well, if you're low maturity, then you've got tons of fires to put out. If you're high maturity, you have hardly any fires to put out.
Yeah, you think it goes in reverse.
But it's weird. You see spikes on the bottom and the top end where you've got a lot of fires. And then, if you're somewhere in the middle for maturity, it's lower. It's really, really weird.
That's so funny. Definitely, I see why you'd want to go dive in on that. Everywhere else, it's like as you go towards more mature, the ratings come back higher, right? We're delivering better on time, we're delivering better on cost, we're delivering better on quality. But this one, no clear answer.
Yeah, but even if you look at the rest of the data, it's not a gigantic difference between the ad hoc and the super ultimate mature, which is kind of surprising. But so when going back to the fires, we have to look at this and wonder, okay, why is that? Why does somebody who's in the top level of maturity say that they have more fires to fight than the ad hoc organization? Is it that they're just more sensitive to identifying? Do they have better detectors? Are they able to see more issues more often?
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
I think the one lesson we can take away is that everybody fights fires. So if you ever think, if we just had this, or we were just more mature, if we were just better, we would never have a problem again. That's crap.
Yeah, your process won't save you. Your tool won't save you. Nothing can save you. Probably because we're humans.
Yes.
Truly, it's because we're humans.
The lesson is there are going to be fires. Just learn to deal with it and be okay.
Yeah.
All right. So next question. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
How does the perceived value of project management in your organization correlate with project success? So here's the question we asked. How is project management perceived in your organization? Is it 1, a roadblock that makes everything complicated? 2, an administrative function? 3, a business enabler? Or 4, an essential function and core competency?
I mean, the value of it must go up with project success. That's what I think. Delivering more projects, good job, project manager. Project manager, you're a business enabler. Project manager, you're a key function, right? That's what I would think.
Exactly. And in fact, I pushed the wrong arrow here. In fact, we looked at the data and then we had to step back and look at the question and think this question is actually crap. We had to throw it out because there's no way to establish causation. If your projects are successful, then people are going to see the value and vice versa, or maybe. But whichever the case, it's hard for us to draw a conclusion other than there is clearly a correlation between project success and how you're perceived.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I guess if you want to be perceived better, just do better.
Yeah. Again, in the Overwatch world, we say, just click foreheads. just get good. Lol.
Just be good.
Yeah.
All right. Now here's an interesting question. How does process compliance correlate with project success? This goes back to our nobody's following process statement.
Yeah.
You hear people complaining about that. And so we asked, well, how well does your organization follow process? And the options we gave them was either 1, what processes? We don't do that here. 2, well, we kind of do it some of the time. 3, yeah, we do it most of the time. Or 4, we are always on process. We do it all of the time.
Again, you would think the better you are at process, the more successful your projects. Be an intuitive answer.
Yeah, you would think. And so we take a look at the data, and yeah, there's kind of a tendency towards that. But the real standout, we have all these different categories. Where do you see the most success? Is it scope, schedule, budget, quality?
Ability to close.
Ability to close. What we see is a 4 times improvement in an organization's ability to close projects if they follow, if they're good at following process.
That's so funny.
4 times. The other category, scope, schedule, budget, all this, there's a correlation, but 4 times difference in the ability to close a project.
That's funny.
So what do you think about that?
I'm wondering what processes they leverage that enable that, right?
Yeah.
Because certainly, I mean, we've talked about, the dusty old PMBOK, and if you implemented every single thing they think you should do, I think that would be tedious and unhelpful and make people think it's an administrative headache. But some amount of process is definitely good and necessary. So I would be curious if these folks hit the sweet spot in what needed to be followed. I don't know if it's that they're escalating well, that they're handling their risks well, that they create phase gates for check-ins, or that they have some sort of regular cadence where they're always reevaluating go, no go, or do we need to push here? Like what process enables this would be my question.
Yeah, and that's definitely an area we need to dig down more into. And that's a really good question, right? Is wow, if it makes this big a difference, what processes are those? But another thought that we had is when you go along on a project, and if you're just sort of making it up as you go, you can make it pretty far before that catches up with you. And if you're not staying on top of things, you're not doing the things you're supposed to, the place that will almost always catch up with you, if it hasn't yet, is this going to catch you up at the end of the project.
You're right.
You get to the end and say, all right, I'm ready to close. And they say, oh, did you get that through information security? No.
Yeah.
Did you actually get sign off from your users? Well, not really.
We didn't need to. We talked to them 8 months ago. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, they were okay with that. So yeah. I think
they liked my napkin sketch. What's wrong with the final product?
Exactly. And so I think that may be something that this is suggesting, that if we don't pay attention to pay attention to those details and make sure on top of things, it will catch up to us at the end. And that's so what that says to me is that's a great measure for how well my team is doing, is if I can look at how well my team closes, what was their planned close date versus their actual close date, that might actually be a really important metric to start tracking if I'm not tracking that today.
Yeah.
Ready for next?
Yep.
How does project data quality correlate with project success? And so the question was, what is the level of quality of your project data that you have? Level 1 is no, it's not reliable or consistent. There's a lot of room for improvement. Or next level up, it's okay for the most part, but I sure would not make a business decision on it. Or next level, yeah, it's all right. It's reliable enough to make a business decision. And number 4, absolutely accurate and reliable. So how do you think that correlates with project success?
Again, same thing, right? The more accurate and reliable your data, the higher the success rate. That's what I would think.
Right. So we take a look and we see a couple things that stand out for us. So first is that quality project data correlates with 62% better resourcing.
Wow, there's a huge spike between reliable enough to make business decisions with and absolutely accurate and reliable. It looks like it's double.
There's a big difference there. And we also see a big increase in customer satisfaction. We get 33% better customer satisfaction if you've got better quality versus inconsistent or unreliable data. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting. What's even more interesting is if we jump back over to, again, your ability to close, there is a 5x improvement in your ability to close projects if you have bad data versus absolutely accurate data.
That is incredible.
It's really surprising. And again, it comes back. We thought about this. We thought, does this come back to this idea that if you're on top of things, you're keeping your data updated, you know what your budget looks like, you're able to get your project done and closed, as opposed to you get to the end and you say, oh crap, I'm out of money. How do I get this done?
Yeah. And did you define project data? Like what was project data?
We didn't go that down into it.
Okay.
So I wanted to have about 100 questions on this survey, but then we had to say, all right, I'm not going to be able to get somebody in PMO symposium
Good job
for an hour. So this is another area where I think that it would be really cool to reach out to some of those respondents or even do another survey and try to find out some more information.
Oh.
But again, clear correlation here between ability to close a project and how accurate your data is.
Mm-hmm.
Ready for the next one?
Yep.
How does having project management tools integrated with other systems correlate with project success?
Oh, this has got to be the more integrated the system, the more success. It has to be.
We would think. So the responses we had available were what tools? Well, they've got no tools.
Mm-hmm.
They're not integrated. I've got key functions integrated, or I've got a single platform and all my universe resides in a single beautiful perfect system.
It's got to be. It's got to correlate like that.
And here's what we got. And the results are not as clear when you first look at it. There's some categories where there's really not a clear correlation. Like if you look at scope, it doesn't seem to matter, which I guess makes sense, maybe. But there are a couple other categories that do kind of jump out at us. So let's take a look at them. First of all, this is a little surprising. Integrating PM tools with other systems has correlation with overall customer satisfaction.
That's funny.
I don't know what to make of that. I was thinking maybe if your customers or your stakeholders are internal, and if your systems are integrated, maybe they can see what's going on better. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, to me, it's funny because right now, originally I thought internal, you said that. And then I thought, well, I think way back in the day, whenever I was the admin of our T&E system, the benefit of that tool, which tracked all of our time, was that it also went into all of our project time. It also fed into how we build our customers. And we did a huge project to make that work really well together. And, customers getting billed appropriately and not having to redo 500 bills or that whole process. I mean, that can make things real nasty between two folks. I feel terrible. There's an invoice right now that's stuck. It's for like a pitiful amount of money, but we can't figure it out with our vendor because now I've moved roles for vendor, and we'll pay it, but administratively, I'm sure it's a huge, stupid headache for our vendor right now. So I know that I'm just thinking through that from a customer satisfaction side of things. If people don't pay, you get mad. So, or if you know what I mean? So, or if you don't deliver and, against what that's what I'm thinking, which is silly, but that's what I'm thinking.
No, that's true. I didn't think of that. So let's look at another correlation. When we did the math, having no tooling is the best indicator for having more fires to fight.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah, it does make sense.
If you don't have any way to track what you're doing or to escalate or, and it's funny because I would even consider PowerPoint a tool. If you're just off the seat of your pants the whole time, it just makes sense that you would have a really hard time dealing with this because they probably also don't have anything set up to enable folks to have a forum to escalate in, right? So of course you're going to fight more fires.
Well, yeah. How are you building your project plan? Do you have a project budget? Do you have a way to manage your scope and all these other your risks? And
totes no goats.
What we see is if you don't have any tools, you have a 20% more likely chance to be fighting fires, which makes sense, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Now here's a touchy subject. How does tracking timesheets correlate with project success?
No correlation.
If we're tracking timesheets, it's usually because we have to from a financial perspective, because we're billing a customer, or we have to track CapEx expense. But there's also the sentiment to say, well, if I know how my people are spending their time, then I can use that to help manage my people better. And possible answers are, the question was, are your people tracking time? And the answers were no, or they're supposed to, but they don't really do it. Or 3, yes, and they actually do track it. So you think there's no correlation?
I think there's no correlation.
You are correct.
Yes.
We could find no correlation between the use of timesheets and project success.
I'm a fortune teller. Feeling good today.
Yes. And so if somebody tells you implementing timesheets is going to fix your world, the answer is no, from a project success perspective. Now, there are other more important reasons to implement. Like we said, it's usually about the money, right? You've got to, if you're in a kind of a professional services area, you've got to be able to bill for that time. So you just have to do it to get paid. And if you're internally capitalizing your budget, you're for your labor, then you have to do that for financial reasons. But doing it just to make things better, that's not it.
Yeah.
All right, ready for the next one?
Mm-hmm.
How does tracking project financials correlate with project success?
That's got to be correlated. If you're paying attention to where you're putting your dollars, you probably think through, why am I wasting time here? How could I reallocate? I do not want to spend more. So what can we do to get around that? It's got to be correlated.
So in our survey, we asked about a lot of different kinds of data. We asked about scope, we asked about risk, we asked about financials. We said, basically, do you track this data or do you not track this data? And the one standout result that we had, the real standout, was this question: how does do you track project financials, and in correlating that to success? And what we found was that in every single measure of project success, scope, schedule, cost, budget, resource management, every single measure of project success, you are better off if you track financials.
Yep.
And as you said, I totally agree with what you said. I think it's, if you don't track the financials, then how do you have a discussion to say this is a bad decision, or that's a right decision, or that's a bad one?
Yeah. And I think project management problems can feel fuzzy and annoying if you don't want to deal with them, especially if you aren't tracking them as an organization. So money gives you a way to quantify the problem, right? Instead of saying, we're not going to be able to deliver on time, and you say, that's fine, another week isn't a problem. And then you say, next week, we're not going to deliver on time, that's fine, another week is a problem. But if you say something such as, we're not going to be able to deliver on time, it's going to cost an additional $50,000 in resources, you will reconsider just pushing week after week, because that has a number value to you. And depending on the size of your organization, 50 grand could be an eye roll, or 50 grand could be something that makes you feel like you can't get anything else done for the rest of the year, and all the resources have to go to this one project. And even then, would it have been worth it? It's just a different way to quantify a problem. And I think it's one of the better ones we have in business, because everything's about money.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly right. And there are a lot of times when our executive managers might not be that interested or into what we're doing in a project delivery perspective, especially if you're not being required to track financials. They may not be paying that much attention. They just think, oh, that's project stuff, I don't have to worry about it. But if you can go to a sponsor or an executive manager and say, hey, you know, this project that you thought was going to cost you $1 million, do you know that's going to cost you $2 million? Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
You can get a lot more response and a lot more support from your executive manager, from your stakeholders and sponsors, if you can bring them some financial data.
Agreed.
And in fact, I'm actually mentoring this really sharp project manager right now. And in his organization, they haven't historically tracked financials. But what he started to do was he sat down and he did the research. He went and financed and said, I want to find out what these projects are actually costing. And they said, why do you want to do that? So, but he asked a question, pulled together the numbers. And he's able to sit down and start to have these discussions about the financials, say, this project, we actually didn't make any money. Do we want to keep doing that, or do we want to change the way we sell it?
That's great leadership.
It's a great leadership. It's really a smart business discussion to have. And you can do that if you can pull together some financial information.
I'll never forget some of the earliest projects I worked on with Kim, and because there's a reason to do projects that don't make you money, right? There's, maybe getting your brand associated with a major brand is a big win. Maybe getting your foot in the door at a big customer is worth, barely squeaking out any revenue for that week or whatever. But I remember there was a person at the first org we worked at together, and I think he just only sold these non-profitable deals that never went anywhere. Oh my gosh. And I got most of them because they didn't have project management in them, and I was a coordinator at the time. So when I talk about, I had 9 projects at one time. I had 9 1 to 2 week long engagements that were not profitable with like big folks that they wanted to get the foot in the door, but we hadn't resourced them with a senior person. It's just a really interesting dynamic when you're talking about non-profitable projects. And this just reminded me of that, there's a reason to do them at times, but I am reminded of my nightmare.
Yeah. And like you said, it's totally okay if an organization says, it's okay if we're not going to make money on this, but they should know
right
how much they expect to lose, or that it's going to be break even. And if it's going to be a lot more underwater than they expected, then they need to know that, and they need to take responsibility for that.
Yeah.
All right. And that's it. Those are the key observations. So the real standout items that correlate with project success, I'll say it again. The real standout items that we found that correlate with project success are, first, data quality, resourcing customer sat, and your ability to close is 5 times better if you have good data quality. Process compliance has a big impact on your ability to close a project too. Integrated project management systems, they help a lot with customer satisfaction. And tracking project financials it correlates with success by every measure of project success. So what do you think?
Some of these I think are really intuitive, and I think that's interesting. And I like focus on not the problem area, but I like focus on results. Yes. So I love the idea that a survey like this gives you some insight into where it matters, where we can target within the work that we do to be more successful. So there's some obvious things to do if you're not tracking financials today. Try it, see what happens, right?
Yeah.
But based off what you found, and we are talking about today, you should see an increase in your project success, which I think is really interesting. But that may or may not mean that you fight more fires. Or, I think it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah. For me, I think of it this way. If you're a project manager and you don't typically track financials, do as best as you can, try to do the research, try to just track it for your own, for yourself, because it may help you manage your stakeholders and sponsors when you really need to. If you're a PMO or a PPM, PMO or a portfolio owner, I might say, if you want to look at your overall portfolio and start measuring success, start tracking your plan versus actual closure dates, and start looking at how well things are getting closed. And then when things are not getting closed well or correctly or on time, look at that. That might be a nice way to start to try to identify problems that you've got in your organization's delivery.
I'd also be curious on how many fires people fight, and to challenge leaders to think about firefighting. I mean, we saw that the most successful organizations fight the same amount of fires the least successful organizations fight. So reduction in fires, even if you, I think, and you know what I mean? I think that can be intuitively what we think is going to happen, right? Intuitively, we think we do more processes, we fight less fires. But I think it's an interesting takeaway that improving what you do does not mean that it becomes easier, which
Yeah.
is, I think, a tough pill to swallow. You know, I think that you would think, ah, yes, I have achieved perfection. I begin the ball in the Rube Goldberg system, and now it goes kick, clap, spin, ping. Like, but no, it's gonna fall over just as many times as it fell over before, except now you're just more likely to be successful based off all the other ways you have matured. I think that's really interesting.
Yep. So we took a look at all this data and we tried to come up with some kind of I don't know, theory on how and why this all works the way it does. And what we came up with this idea of a feedback loop. And it goes like this. And I've got a really good, cool picture of this, which you can't see on the audio, but it'll be on our website. And so the way the feedback theory works is this: is that if you've got your management team, and if they look into your systems and say, okay, what's going on with my projects? And if they see good data that they can consume and that's interesting, that's correct, and is useful to them for decision making, then they will be more interested in consuming that data. As the project teams see this, they say, oh, wow, the VP keeps looking at my project data. I better make sure I get my status report out this week because I know it's being watched. Then it's this kind of increasing feedback loop where management gets good data. The teams know it's being relied on, so they make sure that it is correct, up to date, and good. And so you have this positive feedback loop, and management is able to make data-driven good decisions. What we're probably more used to is the bottom side of that spiral, and it goes like this. And I think everybody may have experienced this: is that the management team takes a look at project data, and if the project data, my status reports, my financials are not up to date, they're going to say, what are they going to say, Kate?
Brr.
This is crap. This is BS. Why am I even looking at this? And then they have to go and make a decision on the projects or the business based on intuition or whatever, not on data.
How they feel about you individually.
Exactly. And so in the project team, they're not dumb. PMs, projects, we know that if nobody is looking at my data, I'm not going to be as intent on updating my budget this week because, who cares? No one's going to look at it.
Some may say we are human and therefore lazy.
And so they're not going to update their project budget. They're not going to update their status. And then the next time the management looks at that stuff, they're going to say, this is even worse crap than I saw before. Mm-hmm. And they're not happy. They're going to make their own decisions, not based on the reality of what's going on in the project. And maybe the project teams aren't minding the details the way they probably should, which could impact project closure, which of course is not going to make the management team any more happy. So you have this downward spiral. So what we're kind of sensing is that we want to try and control that spiral by providing really good data as much as we can to management and helping them drive intelligent decisions based off that.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than an executive or a senior leader feeling like, I can make this decision. We have the data, and then pulling together a bunch of crap data and then explaining to that leader, that data is crappy. Your decision is wrong. Oh gosh, there's a lot of fear about that.
Or you're working really hard and on your PMO, and then you've got a couple of people who aren't really updating their data. And then when you finally sit down with an executive, they look at it and say, well, that's not right. And that's not right. And when they can pick out that stuff is wrong, then the whole thing is completely torpedoed.
Yeah. Stuff.
All right. Key takeaways. Then we can wrap up. 1, there will always be fires to fight, regardless of your level of maturity or your fancy processes. 2, it's worth the effort to implement tools and processes and drive data quality because it looks like there's a correlation there with project success, as we would maybe intuitively say. You're really quiet, Kate.
I am. I've already talked a lot about the fires to fight. So I was like, I don't have more to say on there.
So if you've got good tools, you can expect maybe 20% fewer fires to fight based on our data. If you've got good processes and data quality, you will have a 4 to 5 times better ability to close projects. That's the one that blows me away.
Yeah.
And having integrated PM systems yields an improvement in customer sat and overall success, or at least there's a correlation there. overall, the theme is aim for quality project financial data, because that has a direct correlation with project success by every measure. And there you have it. So what'd you think of our little survey?
I loved it. I'm so glad we got to go through it. That was fun. I also liked being an oracle and seeing the future.
Yes.
I'm a huge nerd, so I loved it. Oh, the sun came up since we started this. I'm so much brighter now. Yeah, no, I thought it was great. That's really interesting. It makes me wonder if we could get a project leader on to, not a project leader, as an executive or somebody who reviews this stuff on to talk about project management, like from all sides of the spectrum, right? Somebody who thinks it's an administrative waste of time and somebody who thinks it's really valuable.
Ooh, that'd be really cool.
I know.
I just really had a lot of fun putting together the survey and then having the conversations with 60 some PMO managers. And
I'm sure you were in your personal heaven.
It was really cool. And it was just a really neat exercise, and I got to meet some cool people. So it was a good endeavor. And so for our listeners, if you're curious, like we were, about trying to find data, put your own survey, go talk to people. And so there you go. That's a bit about data, process, and maturity. It's not all BS, is it? Maybe a little BS, but not all BS.
If you have any questions or feedback on this episode, or your own opinions on or thoughts on process and data that you'd like to share, do so on our Facebook page. You can find us at PM Happy Hour. You can email us at podcast@pmhappyhour.com. You can also, our members can hit us up on our forum and talk more about this there. We got lots of places for you to bring your challenges to this. You can trigger Kate if you want to say my process is perfect, and I'll fight you. Yeah. Fight me.
Before you go, though, Kate and I put a lot of time, effort, money, and love into these podcasts, which we give to you for free. And we love doing it.
So if you want to say thank you, we'd love to ask you to do a little thing for us. Please take 15 seconds right after this podcast and go to iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you get your podcast, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. As we have said, project data leads to project success.
Give us data. And don't forget, go to pmhappyhour.com/membership and sign up to be notified. Let me say that again. And don't forget, go to pmhappyhour.com/membership and sign up to be part of our membership. And if you're interested in talking to us directly about project management at your company, our contact information is on pmhappyhour.com. That's it for today. Good luck with your projects, and we hope to catch you again at the next PM Happy Hour. Cheers, Kate.
Cheers, Kim.